Has anyone ever lost their memory and discovered a dark secret they weren't meant to remember? I was awake when it happened. At least I think I was. The lights were too bright, too harsh, as if someone had shined a spotlight right into my eyes. The air smelled sterile, disinfectant, and aseptic. And there was the sound, that constant beeping, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Or maybe it was, but I couldn't tell anymore. Did I open my eyes, blinked a few times, and try to make sense of the blur in front of me? Faces. Strange faces. My chest hurt like I'd been punched, but I couldn't remember who had thrown the blow. Hey, you're awake, a voice said softly, and I turned my head slightly to the side. It was her. My wife. Or at least, she looked like her. How are you feeling? She asked, her voice too calm, too rehearsed that I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to. I needed to. But nothing was right. Not her. Not the room. Nothing made sense. It was like I'd been dropped into a world where everything was just wrong. I looked at her face, trying to find something familiar, but all I could see was a stranger's smile. I started, but the words felt strange in my mouth, like they didn't belong. Am I okay? She smiled again, but this time there was something behind her eyes, something I couldn't place. Of course you're okay. Just some memory loss, a little confusion. You've been through a lot, but you'll be fine. Memory loss. I blinked again. What happened? I didn't know what I expected her to say, but it wasn't this. You were in an accident, she replied, her hand reaching out to gently stroke mine. But you're going to be fine. Everything will be fine. Just take it easy. An accident. That was the official story. But something in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze for just a second too long, told me that wasn't the whole story. The lump formed in my throat as I tried to grasp at something. Anything to anchor myself. Something fell off that I couldn't remember how I'd gotten here. I couldn't remember why I was in this sterile, unfamiliar room. And worse, I couldn't remember why I didn't trust her. Over the next few days, the questions began to pile up like the empty pill bottles on my nightstand. I was told things I didn't recognize. My work, my friends, my family. Everything felt like it was happening to someone else, someone I didn't know. The pieces didn't fit together, but there was one thing that felt wrong. Every time I asked about the accident, about how it happened, she deflected. She always had an answer, always something to soothe me. A quick change of subject, a promise that I'd remember soon enough. But there was never an explanation. And then came the night I overheard something that shattered everything that I had finally worked up the courage to ask again. This time pressing harder, trying to force her to tell me the truth. How did it happen? Was it a car accident? Was someone else involved? She hesitated just for a moment. I saw it, flicker in her eyes before she regained control of her expression. But it wasn't enough. I told you, she replied, her voice too sharp. It was an accident. Stop asking questions. I was about to push further when I heard a voice. It wasn't hers. Do you think he's starting to remember? I froze. My heart skipped. The voice was unfamiliar, cold. Don't worry, she whispered. He doesn't know anything yet. He'll never know. A chill ran through me. I forced myself to stay still, not breathing. I couldn't let them hear me. I couldn't let her know I had overheard. But the words were like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't ignore them. Who was she talking to? What was she hiding from me? The days that followed felt like a blur of confusion, but now I was different. I wasn't the same man who had woken up in that sterile room. I was someone else now, someone desperate for answers. Someone who would stop at nothing to uncover the truth. That I started watching her more closely. Listening, observing. I couldn't trust her. I couldn't trust anything she said. And then it happened that I found a photograph in her bag. It wasn't a picture of us. Not of our wedding or vacations. Not a photo of our life together. It was a picture of her with someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. That I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was piling up. I needed to know more. I needed to confront her, but I had to be smart about it. I had to play this game carefully. She couldn't know that I knew. That I started to dig, pulling at the threads of my own life, trying to piece together the fragments of the person I had been. But every time I dug deeper, I found more cracks, more lies. There were too many inconsistencies. Too many things that didn't add up. One evening, after dinner, I decided to test her. I casually asked if we could go out, just the two of us, to a place we used to visit. Her eyes flickered with hesitation before she forced a smile. Not tonight. I've got some things to take care of. I smiled, playing along. Of course. No problem. But I wasn't going to let it go. I needed answers. So I went on my own. I went to the place, the old cafe, where we used to spend our Saturday mornings. And that's when I saw her. With him, the man from the photo. They were sitting at a corner booth, talking too closely, laughing too freely. And as I watched, something inside me twisted. There was no guilt in her eyes, no shame. She was happy. Happy with someone else that I should have felt anger, betrayal. But instead, I felt numb, cold, as if I were standing outside myself, watching everything from a distance that I didn't confront them. I didn't make a scene. I just walked away. But it was then that I realized the truth. This wasn't about the accident. It wasn't about my memory loss. This was about something much deeper. The next few days, I kept up the act. I pretended like I still didn't remember everything, like I still didn't know what was really going on. But inside, I had made a choice. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to make her suffer. She thought I was weak. She thought I had forgotten everything. But I hadn't. And when I was ready, I would make her remember the same way she was going to make me. It all started with a friend request that I didn't think much of it at first, just another random ad on Facebook. But then I saw who it was, Alyssa, my wife's college friend. They hadn't talked in years, but I knew that name well. I'd heard about her often enough over the years, how close they'd been, how much they had meant to each other back in the day. I always assumed it was harmless. I mean, what could be wrong with a few old friends reconnecting? But the message that came with it was strange. Hey, long time no talk. Hope you're doing well. Would love to catch up. It was innocent enough, right? But then she sent another message. This one was different. It didn't take long for me to realize what was really going on. Remember those late night talks we used to have? I still think about them sometimes. You should come visit me sometime. Just like old times. I stared at the screen, trying to process it. I clicked on her profile, checked her pictures. She was still beautiful, just like I remembered her from the stories. And that's when it hit me. Alyssa wasn't reaching out to rekindle an innocent friendship. She was here for something else. I could feel it that I didn't say anything to Sarah at first. It wasn't like I had concrete evidence of anything, just a feeling, a gut instinct that things weren't as innocent as they seemed. But the messages kept coming. At first, they were subtle, casual, but then they grew more frequent, more personal. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room with Sarah, I saw Alyssa's name flash across my phone again. This time, it wasn't a message, but a video call request. Hey, I hope you're not busy. Just wanted to say hi. Her voice crackled from the phone screen, as if nothing was wrong. But everything about her smile screamed familiarity, something that made my stomach churn. I didn't pick up. I couldn't. Sarah was right there. And there was no way I could explain why I would be talking to her best friend behind her back that a few days later, I started looking for answers. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, I went through my wife's old things, old photo albums, letters, even her college yearbooks. And there it was, a picture of the two of them smiling and holding hands at some beach trip years ago. I remember how Sarah used to talk about Alyssa with such admiration. But now all I could think about was how close they seemed, how much they shared. Maybe it wasn't all innocent. Maybe there was more to their friendship than I ever realized. It felt like I was unraveling a web of secrets that had been carefully hidden from me for years. I felt betrayed, even though there was nothing concrete. But something about the way Alyssa kept reaching out, it made me feel like I was losing control. Like Sarah had never really been mine in the way I thought she was, that I knew I had to do something about it. But what? How could I confront her without looking like the paranoid husband who had nothing but suspicion and jealousy? It wasn't until I saw Sarah's phone left on the kitchen counter, a message blinking on the screen, that I decided to act. It was from Alyssa. I miss you. I miss us. It was short, and it didn't sound like the message of someone just checking in. I took a deep breath, grabbing my phone. I scrolled back through the messages. The intimacy of the exchanges was there. The inside jokes, the compliments, the lingering promises that maybe one day they would see each other again. My blood was boiling that I decided to take matters into my own hands. I wasn't going to let Alyssa continue invading our lives without a fight. But instead of confronting her outright, I decided to turn the tables. I would become the one she wasn't expecting. I created a fake account. Something unassuming, something Alyssa wouldn't question. A simple profile with no pictures, just a name, Ben, the perfect anonymous character. I knew enough about her interests to play the game, and soon I started sending her messages. Casual at first, just like she had done with Sarah. And to my surprise, she responded immediately. We started chatting. First about simple things, work, life. But as I pushed the conversation, it grew more personal, just like with Sarah. I could tell she was intrigued, maybe even flattered. I played my part, making her feel special. All the while, my mind raced, wondering if I was doing the right thing. But then the real kicker came. She told me she'd missed our late-night talks. It was as if I had found the key to her heart, the thing I knew she was desperate for. And I couldn't stop. I played my part so well, and before long, the messages got more flirtatious. Her responses were warmer, more open. I was Ben, the guy who understood her, who was interested in everything she had to say. I was the one filling the space that Sarah once had in her life, that I pushed it further. The more I got from her, the more I realized how deep I was in. I wasn't just playing a game anymore. I was feeling something I didn't expect, power. The power to manipulate the situation, to take back control. Alyssa knew I wasn't the guy she thought I was, but she didn't know how far I'd go to expose her, to turn her world upside down the way she was trying to do with mine. That I arranged to meet her. Same place as before, a coffee shop. We both thought we knew what was going to happen. She had no idea I'd been watching, waiting. I showed up, and when she saw me, her eyes widened. She didn't even try to hide her shock, but this time I was in control. "I think you know why I'm here," I said, my voice calm, yet sharp. She nodded slowly, the realization hitting her. She knew exactly what was happening. The charade was over. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this?" I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "Because I wanted you to feel what it was like to be on the other side for once." The silence hung thick in the air. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. And I knew, in that moment, the game was over. She had lost. That I left the coffee shop, walking away with my head held high. I wasn't the one who had betrayed anyone. It was her. And now, she had nowhere to hide. I wasn't looking for it. Not really. I don't know what made me glance over her shoulder, but I did. Her phone, half buried under a pile of papers on the kitchen table, buzzed with a new notification. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize, but that wasn't the part that caught my attention. It was the message itself. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be waiting in the usual spot." I froze. My heart dropped. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Small signs that I'd brushed aside. But this felt different. I tried to play it cool. I pretended nothing happened. I didn't even mention it to her that night. She was busy with her work, barely giving me a second glance as she made dinner. I didn't let the anger rise. Instead, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I was going to make her think I didn't know. I wasn't going to play the victim. I wasn't going to beg her for the truth. I was going to play it my way. The next few days were like a performance. She didn't seem any different, which only made me more suspicious. I kept acting normal, laughing at her jokes, discussing our plans for the weekend like we always did. But inside, I was simmering, quietly plotting. Every time her phone buzzed, I caught myself glancing at her face to see if she flinched, if the guilt would show. But nothing did so. I did what anyone in my position would do. I created a fake account, a new persona. It wasn't hard. I'd done this sort of thing before. With a little research, I pieced together enough of a profile to send a message that could hook her. No different than the dozens of times I had pretended to be someone else online for work, for fun, to escape. The profile I made was simple, a man who shared similar interests to her. I knew her well enough to choose the right topics, the right tone. I told her I'd met her once at a cafe downtown. She never would have remembered me, but I needed her to feel like she'd let me slip through the cracks. It didn't take long for her to respond. Within hours, I had a message waiting for me, just like the others she'd been receiving. Her response was casual at first. Then, As the conversation grew, it became flirtatious, playful, almost too familiar. I kept her engaged, subtly pushing her boundaries, feeding her ego. I let her believe that she was in control of the situation, that she was the one making the choice. That a week later, the plan was set. I had her exactly where I wanted her. I knew the meeting spot, the one she'd mentioned in the message. I could tell she was excited. She'd been talking about it for days, how she couldn't wait for tonight. I played my part, keeping up the facade, making her think everything was normal at home. But tonight, I wouldn't be the one to stay home that I watched her leave. She didn't even glance at me as she grabbed her coat and headed out the door. I should have felt something, anger maybe, but all I felt was calm. I'd anticipated this moment, calculated it, planned it down to the smallest detail. This was the game, and I was in control. That I waited for an hour before I followed her. It wasn't hard to stay out of sight. I knew the route she'd take. I parked a few blocks away and watched from a distance as she walked into the alley where the meeting was supposed to happen. I stayed hidden, my heart pounding, waiting for the moment I'd finally see it. The truth, she wasn't alone. That a man stood at the end of the alley, his back turned toward her. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't need to. She approached him with a familiar smile, the one she'd always worn when she was excited to see someone, anyone, that she cared about. The way her body language softened, the way she leaned into him. It wasn't just a friend. It was someone she was drawn to. I could feel it from the distance. They kissed. I don't even know why it shocked me. Maybe I'd been holding on to some fantasy that I was wrong, that maybe she wasn't doing this behind my back. But as I stood there, watching them, I realized how stupid I had been to ever doubt what I had already known deep down, that I didn't stay for long. I didn't need to see anything else. The betrayal was clear, and I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. The next day, she came home, all smiles, talking about how her day went. She didn't know I knew. She didn't know that I'd seen it with my own eyes. "Did you have a good time last night?" I asked, my voice smooth, calm. Her eyes flickered for a second. There was a subtle hesitation, but she quickly recovered. "Yeah, I did. Thanks for asking." I smiled back, but it wasn't the smile I used to wear. It was something colder, something different. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. She froze, the smile fading slightly, but not enough to show real panic. "Yet, I know about him," I added, almost too casually, watching the shock appear on her face twisted in disbelief. "What do you mean? You think I'm an idiot?" I leaned forward. "I've known for weeks. But the thing is, I'm not angry. Not anymore." She stood there, wide-eyed, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I stood up, walking toward her slowly. "I've got a better idea than just confronting you. You've played your hand, and I'm not the fool you think I am. But now, I'm in control." Her breath quickened, but I could tell she still didn't understand. "I've been waiting for this," I said softly. "Now you get to play my game." The next few weeks were a blur. She continued to deceive, thinking she could manage both of us. I kept the charade going, responding to her fake friend messages with an insidious calmness. I even played the part of the loving husband, waiting for her to slip again. And each time she did, I collected more evidence, more proof of the betrayal. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted to ensure she knew exactly who was in charge. She didn't know it yet, but her world was about to crumble. The walls she'd built were nothing compared to the ones I'd just started constructing. I'd always thought my mom's smile could solve anything. She used to have that effect on people. At least, that's what I believed when I was younger. There were days when we'd sit in the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon rolls filling the air, and she'd laugh at my terrible attempts at math homework. But somewhere along the way, things changed. I just didn't realize how much until it was too late. I found out about the affair in the worst way possible. It wasn't a confrontation or an accident. No, it was a text, just a damn text. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was in the living room scrolling through my phone. Mom had left her phone on the counter, unlocked, as usual. I was just checking to see if she had any plans for dinner. I didn't mean to snoop. Then there it was. A message from someone named Tom, asking if she was still thinking about last weekend. There was a smiley face at the end of it. I had seen that smiley face before, but I couldn't place it first. The realization hit me like a freight train when I remembered it. My mom's old friend from work. The one who always came to our house for barbecues. For a long moment, I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it, but it didn't add up. My mom wasn't the type of person to cheat. She had always made sure I knew how important honesty was, how it was the foundation of any relationship. And yet, here she was sending secret messages to someone. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. Was this the same woman who had held me as a kid when I cried over some stupid school issue? Was this the same mom who wiped away my tears when Dad left us? Now, I wondered if she had been lying to me all along, that I couldn't just let it go. I couldn't erase the image of her typing those words, sharing moments with someone else when I thought I was the most important thing in her life. It was the betrayal that shattered everything. At first, I didn't know what to do with the anger. It was a kind of rage I had never felt before, raw and intense. I didn't want to confront her, not yet. She would only deny it, and I would be left feeling stupid and embarrassed. No, I needed a plan. I needed something bigger than just confronting her face to face. I had to make her understand what it felt like to have everything you thought you knew about someone torn apart. The opportunity came a week later when I overheard her talking to Tom on the phone. She thought I was upstairs, but I could hear the words clearly. "I can't believe how much I've been missing you," she said. "We'll have to figure out how to see each other more often." My stomach lurched. I wanted to break something, anything, but I stayed quiet, listening, absorbing it all. She wasn't even trying to hide it. That's when I started my plan that I knew the rules of social media better than anyone. So, I created a fake account, a little profile under the name Ben. A profile with just enough details to seem real, just enough to make her trust it. And I messaged her. At first, it was innocent. Small talk about work, comments on posts. But I knew how to make someone feel special, how to make them feel like they mattered. I pretended I was someone else who shared her interests, someone who understood her the way no one else did. It didn't take long before she was responding. 2 weeks passed. Our messages grew more personal. I learned about her secrets, her vulnerabilities. She talked about Dad, about how she wished she could have done things differently. She even talked about how she wished she could get away from it all, just for a little while. But I never once let on that I was her son. I had to keep the charade going. If I pulled away now, I wouldn't get what I needed. I arranged to meet her in a coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon. I told her that I'd been thinking about her a lot and thought it might be nice to finally meet in person. Her response came quickly. "I've been thinking the same. Let's do it." I sat at the cafe, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. She had no idea who I was. No idea that the person she had been confiding in, someone she trusted, someone she had bared her soul to, was her own son. I kept my eyes on the door, my heart racing in my chest. It wasn't until I saw her walk in, scanning the room, that I felt a deep pit open in my stomach. When our eyes met, her expression faltered for just a second, and that was when I saw it, the guilt. It was there clear as day, but then, just as quickly, she covered up with a smile. She didn't recognize me, of course. To her, I was still just Ben, the guy she had been chatting with. I stood up and walked toward her, feeling my pulse quicken. "It's good to finally meet you," I said, my voice calm but colder than I expected. She smiled, reaching out to shake my hand. "Yeah, you too." But the moment our hands touched, I saw it. The brief flash of realization. She knew. In that instant, she knew. The words she had typed, the lies she had told, all of it was now staring her in the face. And I just let the silence hang there, a heavy, suffocating thing that I didn't say another word. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, the weight of everything I'd just done settling in. I didn't need to say anything. The silence was enough. She could feel it. The betrayal was complete, that I never looked back.